All right. Hello. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's Accelerate Yale webinar, Building an Ethical Fashion Company, a fireside chat with Laura Meléndrez with Amor Rosas. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ellen Sue, Yale College class of 2013. I'm a member of the leadership team of Accelerate Yale and Yale Angels. Our discussion this evening is co-sponsored by the Yale Latino Alumni Network, YLAN, and Yale Women. Accelerate Yale is a global community of alumni and friends of Yale who are engaged in innovation, tech, and entrepreneurship. Please note we are being recorded this evening with all participants muted. Tonight's session will be 1 hour and we will reserve the final 25 minutes for your questions, so keep them in mind. If you have a question that you would like to submit, please do so via the Q&A button on the bottom bar of your screen. And now I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator for this evening. Wendy Maldonado de Amico is Yale College class of 1993 and director of Accelerate Yale and Yale Angels. She's the chief of staff and head of marketing at Founder Tribes, an app that offers entrepreneurs unparalleled access to feedback and mentorship from world-class founders and investors with the ultimate goal of opening up access to funding. Wendy was born in Mexico and immigrated to the US when she was 4. After graduating from Yale, she returned to her birth city to teach English as a second language to business professionals and travel the Republic. She served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Belize and went on to work at Booz Allen Hamilton, Merrill Lynch, and SAP, the German software company. She was named one of Latina Magazine's top 10 Women of the Year in 2003. She has an MPA from Harvard's Kennedy School, an MBA from MIT Sloan, and a BA in English from Yale.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for this evening, Laura Meléndrez. Laura was born in Arizona and she grew up in Sinaloa, Mexico, and has lived in Mexico City since 2012. She holds a bachelor's degree in marketing from the Monterrey Institute of Technology, basically Mexico's MIT, an MBA from the EGADE School of Business, with a master in advanced management from the Yale School of Management. She is class of 2016 from SOM. Laura has lived in Italy, Canada, and the US, and her areas of expertise are social entrepreneurship, fashion, marketing, and sales and retail. Laura is a self-driven person who enjoys taking on new challenges. She is an intrapreneur and an entrepreneur. Most recently, she co-founded Amor Rosas, an ethical fashion brand with the objective to transform the lives of those women who wear Amor and Rosas clothes, but to also transform the lives of those women who make the garments. Laura, it's an honor for Accelerate Yale to have you here with us this evening. And thank you so much for joining us from Mexico. Another international webinar. Bienvenida.
Gracias. Well, this is my pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation, Wendy. And well, I'm very happy to be here, and I hope that I can share something that it's inspiring or just like motivates you to consider a career change path or something, that decision you are just like trying to make.
Yes, yes. So I know our audience is dying to hear more about your business and how you got started. So I'm going to just kind of start at Yale. I'm really interested to know how you and your co-founders came up with the idea for Amor and Rosas, and how you came up with the name, how you came up with the initial concept. How did you launch it out of Yale? Talk to us.
Yeah, so we won the fellowship and we were super excited about it. And that was like the push we needed, right? To be like, okay, this is serious now. And like for a year, we were just dreaming about it. It's like, I remember when I moved to New Haven, I was just like talking to Deborah and she was like, oh, so you want to start this business? And I also love fashion. I would love to be considered and be part of it too. And I think that was like, it was a very personal path. And then I pitched the idea to my friends and they were like, okay, let's do this together. And it was like, I wanted to help women. And back then I decided to go back to school so I could learn more about different business models and I just get some inspiration about what can I do in Mexico. social impact is still new here, despite like it has been done, but I wouldn't say that it's something that's very common in Mexico. And I was just like trying to come up with something like what can I do with women, and of course like working with indigenous women in Mexico made the most sense because it's the group that it's more underprivileged. And just like once you start to understand what they can make, and then you see all the handcrafts they make, and all the knowledge they are holding, it's like okay, so there's something here. And I have always enjoyed going to the markets or when I was on vacations with my families, you know this, Wendy, and just like
I am so fascinated. I can't get enough. Yes. Tell me more.
yeah, and even like me being a kid, I would just like go there and beg my mom to buy me this small box or this other thing, and I was always like collecting these small items. And once I was older, I would just buy the dresses, but then my friends would be like, "Oh, you are so tall, you can wear them," but they are so boxy on me. And I was like, "Well, I think they are beautiful and I love them." And I think that was the first insight. So I was like, okay, if I can make something that's beautiful and modern with hand embroidery or artisanal textiles, then we have a product that's competitive. And that's when the idea started to make sense. Like I remember telling this to Deborah, my business partner, and she's Canadian, and she was like, well, if you make what you are describing, then I'll be the first person to buy it. Because it sounds so beautiful. Like even in like, you know, how or she has a Canadian, she would travel to Mexico City most of the time, and she's like, well, I have all of these things that I bought in Mexico, and I know how beautiful the embroidery is, but it's true, like you have a point there, it's not modern. So that's when everything just like was born, and then we just like it started taking shape when we launched in 2016 in September. And the first thing that we had to do is to set up the supply chain. Back then it was very uncertain about like which techniques to use because everything is so personal. So we had to go to the communities and just pitch the idea to different groups, and then see which artisans were actually interested. And once we found the groups is when we started designing the product. And about the name, I think the name is one of the things that's super exciting. I remember it was a very intense brainstorming session, and it was like, and it was me and Deborah and being like, we want the name to be international. Like we want the artisans to be able to pronounce the name, but we also want people in the US to understand the meaning. So we were like, okay, I think love, like everybody knows Amor in English, in Spanish, like even in the US, people should know Amor. And then we were like, okay, maybe it's Amor Rosas. But then Deborah was like, okay, that sounds like Omar Rosa. We don't want to be related to that. And we were just like, okay, then let's stop here. And it took us like a few days. So I was like, well, it's a shame that it sounds like that when the meaning is so beautiful, because amorosas is like a loving person. And then we just like kept going. And then at some point I was like, okay, maybe we can split the word in two and just have amor and rosas. And then we were just like playing with the words, and it was like, okay, love, it's the only thing that can transform, and what we want people to do with our clothing is to feel transformed. So then now we have this sentence, and it's that love is the only virtue that can make a person bloom, and that's what we aiming for with Amor and Rosas.
I love that. I love that. Um, so I'm always I'm a former English major, so I'm always really interested in words and kind of what they impart in terms of the meaning. So and your brand is so important, right? Particularly for a fashion brand. So I'm curious about the process. I'm curious about so many things. One of the things that I'm really curious about is how you tested your products at the beginning, because you occupy this unique space of, you're incorporating the traditional embroidery. And for those of you who are watching, Laura and I are both wearing products from the company. I'm wearing a huipil, which is a traditional blouse. It's been worn for centuries by women throughout the Americas. And mine is sort of like a deep berry color with hand embroidery. And Laura, you're wearing a jacket with gorgeous embroidery, both on the front and the back and on the sleeves. But one of the questions that I have for you, Laura, is how you tested your products for your target consumer. Who did you think your customer was? What did you think that she wanted? And how did you test that? Because you had to kind of combine these traditional embroidery techniques, which you and I both know can look not modern, but you needed this clothing to be wearable for a modern woman. So talk to us about how you tested your product and found the right products to offer to your target customers.
Yeah, well, this is very interesting. And I think if I show you the first piece we ever made, and then what we are making right now, you'll see a big difference. And we are still learning about what's the product that our customers want to buy from us. But what we made is that we designed this first collection, and we just tried to put in all the different clothing options that we had. So we had a few dresses, jackets, blouses, pants, and I was just basically working every weekend at these pop-ups. So here in Mexico, there are, because the Mexican design is a movement, and there are many designers who are trying to position their brands. So you go there, and there are these customers or potential customers who are looking for new brands, and they know that if you go to these pop-ups, you are going to find new designers or new brands. So I would just like go there, and I'm obviously not a designer, and I would be just like kind of like trying to fit into this ecosystem. But I was actually just like testing my product, and they were like, "Where's the designer?" Oh, here I am. And we were just like observing the people's reaction. Is like we'll have these two racks with the clothing, and we had a few pieces. I remember back then we probably produced 4 pieces for each style we made, and we had like 20 different styles. um, and we were just observing, trying to sell, and like realizing which products were the ones that the market wanted. And well, it was very straightforward now that I think about it. Bomber jackets, like the jackets in the collection, everybody wanted the same jacket. We only had 4. So it's like, okay, this is a hit. And then blouses. And then what we also learned is that dresses and pants are hard to sell at a pop-up, right? Or here, now that we sell more to in these concept stores where it's usually people discovering Mexico City, so they are just walking with their friends. They don't have a lot of time to go to the boutique and trying everything on. It's more of a wrap and go. It's like, I like this, I'll pay for it. I won't even like get into the fitting room. And then we also met one of our best customers. Like most of our best customers, we met them there because there's people who want to connect with the brands there. And we learned that our customers are women, 30 to 45 years old. They are well educated. They want to support women. They're fully in for female empowerment. And now that we know them better, whenever they go to the studio, they are like, "Laura, I have a few pieces of advice for you, or this feedback. You should do this and this and this." And it's super welcome. And it was just like a great way of realizing that there was a market for the company. A few pop-ups after, we were the brand that the organizers, the event organizers, would just like put in front. And they were like, okay, Amor Rosas is going to get the best location. And we started growing from there. But that was the validation. It was the first year of the brand. And then the second year, we started just looking for point of sales so we can have more of a formal distribution. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, I don't know if I'm missing a part of the question.
No, you're great. You're great. So, so from year two, how did the business change from like, can you tell us a little bit about how your business has evolved since you launched? Because you started out with, you tested some pieces at these pop-ups, then you kind of got to a point where you understood what people were gravitating to, the bomber jackets, dresses, things like that. So you've gotten to this place where you're starting to identify points of sale. Where did you grow from there? Like what were your decision points, and how did you decide on your next phase of growth?
Yeah, like after that, we were like, okay, we won't continue with the pop-ups, and then we started doing consignment to small boutiques here in Mexico City, so they can just like realize if the brand was a good fit for them. So it was more of like, if you're interested in the brand, we can send you 15 pieces, and then in 3 months we'll know if it's a good point for us. So we're just like trying to get to all of these potential points of sales and just test the market. And I think, and right now we sell at more than 15 concept stores in Mexico. And in the US, it would be different because logistics is just complicated. So we do wholesales if you are in the US. And we have three stores that are good there. And also direct sales are good for us because our customers, they want to connect with us, they want to understand, because our brand is so deep, it's hard to communicate that on social media. So we are like,
Mhm.
whenever someone see us like in person, we can just have this conversation. They understand what we are doing, and then they come back to the studio and they keep buying. So I think for us, it's more of a way of connecting, and people want to know who we are, who are the artisans, what are we doing, and then like if they're doing well, what's like the latest thing that has happened in their lives, and just like be connected to us. And this past year, it was funny because we weren't even paying attention to e-commerce. The brand is so small, like we are 6 people in the team, that we were like, okay, we don't even have time for e-commerce. We'll just like continue doing things in this way. It's fine with us. And last year, we just like, it just exploded, and the brand growth despite the pandemic, because people were just like looking for brands who are like, oh, this is my sense of it. It's like, now we are so tired of just like buying things in the like, because of consumerism, that we actually want to connect and make sure that we are buying, it's helping people, and that it's made in a way that's sustainable. So now we are selling on e-commerce, but also in the stores now that they are finally open. So it's a good mix. I would say that for us, the marketing is just like being in those boutiques, because that's an easy like way for people to discover the brand. But then if they want to repurchase, they can always go to our website.
I see. So uh, for the purposes of anybody who's watching here, you can, if you are in the US or Mexico, you can order things to be shipped to you. I've ordered from Laura. I live here in the United States, and I ordered this blouse, and I ordered this purse, this beautiful purse, which is embroidered. It's pretty versatile. You can wear it in a few different ways. And the strap is also embroidered, and it's, a really sturdy purse, even though it looks kind of delicate. It's beautifully hand embroidered. But I guess if I'm just kind of thinking, if I'm your target customer, yes, that totally resonates with me. Well, I will admit that I buy some fashion, which is a lot cheaper. It's good to know that there are people who have worked on my piece, and that somehow it's, it's helping them earn a living wage, which is important to me, right? Because there's plenty of, factories that are churning out a lot of fashion in bulk, and the fashion industry, as we know, is creating a tremendous amount of waste. It almost kind of prides itself. It's become so easy to manufacture things that, you end up with this terrible surplus. And the United States is so guilty of that, right? But I really value the fact that the things that I've bought from you are timeless, and they wear really well, and they've been made. Like, I remember when I got the items from you, there were these little cards that told me who made them, the person who had embroidered them, which I thought was really cool. The name of the person, the person who had embroidered them. And I will also say, to the sustainability point, the packaging that Laura uses is sustainable as well. It's kind of, how can you describe it? Like, Laura, how did you come up with the packaging and the decisions around how you would present your products to your customers?
Yeah, so we wanted to just like create minimum packaging and to avoid the use of plastics. So all the paper that we use, it's recycled, and it's minimum. But like, even we had like, because we send things with FedEx, they are like, "Oh, you need plastic." It's like, no, I just send it like this. Like, well, if the package arrives damaged, we won't cover it. It's like, it's fine, I'll resend it. And we haven't had any problem with it. It's just like they are so used to just add plastic to everything, and we're like, no, this needs to be minimum packaging. We don't need to add any more trash. Like, just like thinking about all the trash that we generate every day. And I think it has worked very well. Even at the studio, now that we are like, we hate plastic there. It's like, okay, we are always like saving paper bags, and it's very simple, and sometimes it can be just like something that you don't even think about it, but there are a few things that already come in a plastic bag. You just save them and reuse them, and you make sure that you don't get too many plastic bags from outside either, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our hand tags, we want to credit the artisans for their work, and that's why each piece is signed by the artisan, the artisan that the leader of the community. So because we have 45 women, and we were like, okay, it's going to be impossible to have 45 different versions of hand tags, but we are going to show the leader of the group, and that's it. If you shop from us in our studio, we give you a reusable tote bag that is made with fabric. And it's super beautiful. And it's super nice to see people also like wearing them outside, or maybe here in Mexico City that you walk a lot, you see people carrying the packaging. So I think it's good that it's reusable, or it's minimum, and at least that it's made with materials that are eco-friendly.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your design process that you have going with your artisans now? I've seen some of the videos that you've shown in the past of going into communities where your artisans are. And there's a whole co-design process, if I'm not mistaken, that you engage in with them. Can you talk a little bit about how that works?
Yes, like we make the drawings in Mexico City, and we cut every single piece in the studio in Mexico City, and then we send it to the communities in Chiapas or Hidalgo. Those are the two communities we are working with mostly. And then they collect the package, they do the drawing. Like, what we actually make it, the drawings are actually just like embroidery references. I wouldn't say it's a complete drawing. And then they just add the details. Like, we can just like give them basic references of the thread color, and they have a box with all these threads, and they just like go there and they select them, and then they do their magic. And I think it's beautiful because that way every piece is unique. We produce the blouses. That's one of the items that we sell the most. The batches can be 20 pieces or 50 pieces, and each batch is going to have a different color, or even within the same batch, you're going to find two different versions of the same top. And I think that's something that's very unique, and it's also very like eco-friendly because we are adapting to what we have in the materials, because the artisans cannot be like, oh, we ran out of dark orange, I'm going to run to the store. They are like, okay, what can I do with what I have right now? And we just like decide that really quickly, and they're like, okay, sometimes we even like have to change the color because they're like, okay, orange is not an option right now. They want me to use yellow instead. And also, like, whenever we are creating a new design, because I think this is maybe the what happened is that distance, it's a challenge, and with that challenge, what we where we are getting here is that it's empowering them to make a decision, and they have to be quick, right? And they won't, if I get involved, I'm going to make the process slow. So it's like, okay, just solve it, I'm fine with it, I agree with whatever you decide. And that way they are just like having a better voice and participating in the design process. But then sometimes I do get customers who are like, oh, I didn't get the top has picture. And I'm like, well, it's a unique piece. We try to do all the styles in the same way, but it's also beautiful. They are different, and they are imperfect in a way. So that's what we do. Then they send the embroideries back to Mexico City, and we assemble everything in a small factory that's outside Mexico City. The town is called Zumpango, state of Mexico, and that factory employs 10 people, and we are their only customer.
Very cool. So talk to us a little bit about the women that work on these pieces. What kind of difference does your business make in their lives in terms of their ability to provide for their families and generate incomes for themselves? Is there, talk to us a little bit about how the work that you're giving them makes a difference in their communities.
Yeah, I think one of the best moments for me of 2020 was October, because I finally I finally went to the community, because the community was closed during the pandemic. And in October in Mexico City, things felt like they were going to get back to normal, but it wasn't. So I went there, and they received me in a way that they were like, thank you so much for keep sending us work. We started making the face mask, and they were like, nobody here is getting any like work. We're just like surviving out of the agriculture and the products that we get here. So I think that moment I was like, okay, what we are doing here, it's important. It's not what I have in mind yet. I'm getting there, but it was just like very encouraging. I was like, okay, we are getting there. They're so happy. I can see how happy they are that I'm here. I feel so welcome. And they were like, okay, what you're sending us is helping us to go to the town, to San Cristobal de las Casas, and buy what we need. But they are just like self-sustained communities, but they still need to buy some things from the outside. And it is just uh because like I'm trying to structure this. Right now what is happening is that with the pandemic everything is slowed down, and what we need to do is that we need to grow so we can just have a better impact on the artisans income. And right now with the face mask, we are selling and we are growing, but still the growth is not enough for us to reach the impact that we want to make. And the artisans, they don't see things in the same way. To them, it's like, okay, you keep selling me, sending me work, and I'm getting extra money, but it's also good for them because they work by piecework, and all of them, they are moms, so they get to do their, like, they need to take care of the house. They sometimes they go and work with their husbands, like they work and work on the land, and then they come to their houses in the afternoon, and they do some of the embroidery so they have an extra money.
They're always working.
They're always working. They wake up at 4 a.m., sometimes 6 a.m. And they are like, okay, I wake up in the morning, I make food for the family, then I stay at home, clean the house, I do embroidery for 2 hours, then we eat real fast, and then we do embroidery for 4 more hours. At 4 p.m., the husband arrives, and that's when she stops working. She's like, no, at 4, I need to be for him. And then in the afternoon, they go to church, and they have like this life and this like they're always active even in the afternoons, or like, but they don't see this has always working. It's just like being active, being present, doing things. And I think that's the most beautiful thing is, and why I don't want them to leave their communities, because the quality of life they have and how their mental health is so good. It's like, okay, what they have there, it's so unique. And then the opposite thing for them would be to move to Mexico City and just live in a place that I know it's not going to be decent,
Mhm.
or not even good. Like they're going to lose their families, their connections, and everything they have. And life here in Mexico City can be really tough for them when they just move.
Mhm. Mhm. We're going to be going to questions here in a few minutes, but I wanted to ask you, Laura, about several more things, but I will control myself. One of the things that I wanted to ask you was about your growth, your vision of growth for the company. You said a few minutes ago that things really slowed down during the pandemic, and even and kind of looking at where you were last October, and you saw the impact that you were having on these women's lives, kind of reassured you that you were doing the right thing, even though you weren't to where you wanted to be yet. And we've seen, or you've seen rather, an evolution of your brand over time, and I'm curious about what you see as kind of the future of the company. Where do you want it to go, and how do you want it to grow?
Well, we open our second location here in Mexico City. And it may sound crazy because of the pandemic, but it's so nice. Like, so what we are going to do is that we are going to start opening stores in locations that are strategic for people to get to know the brand, and just continue with that hybrid of selling traditional channel and on e-commerce. And I think if we continue with that, the brand is going to continue to grow organically, which is what I want, because it takes us time to set up the supply chain, and we are just concentrated with these two groups. So in the future, you'll see a few Amor Rosas stores around, and also our e-commerce is going to improve. And that's it. And thinking about like how 2019 was such a great year for us, I remember that our growth was just 300% in comparison with 2018. So I think that we just need to hold on for 2021, and 2022 is going to be an amazing year for us. We just need to stabilize and be here, because everything that is happening right now, it's so unstable that it's hard to know what is going to happen, especially with fashion, that it's not a basic need or something that we need to continue to buy. And now that we are socializing less, it's complicated. Like, people aren't buying as much clothing as before. Also, the pieces we make, they last forever. And you know that better than I do. Like, I say that what we make, and also because they are such statement pieces, right? Like, you need a jacket, and you buy the jacket, it's going to be your favorite jacket that you wear all the time. But then and we have customers that are like, I have this jacket and it's the only thing I have from Amor Rosas, but I wear it all the time. Or you have or you buy this jacket and you wear it occasionally, but it's going to be in your closet forever, because maybe you wear it 2 or 3 times a year for a special occasion. It's like, well, I feel like I'm ready to wear something that's like extra elegant today. And you know, it's so memorable that you don't wear all the time.
And I think that's part of, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's also part of your mindset around sustainability, right? That you're not creating clothing that is meant to be kind of enjoyed once and thrown away, but rather you're meant to keep it for a long time and enjoy it for a long time. And the fabrics and materials that you're using also reflect that.
Yeah, I think what we make it's more of an style, and it aligns, and it has a super beautiful story behind. So it's just like a conversation starter too. Um, and and yeah, like I don't think we are fashion. We are just a style, and we want to make pieces that last forever, and that the quality is good, and also because of the embroideries and all the work that each piece has, it's just like something that you value a lot. So we always get like these questions, is like, how should I wash my jacket? And you know that people are putting an extra effort just to preserve the piece. As if you compare that to a basic, it's like, okay, I'll take the risk, and hopefully it's going to be fine after I wash it.
Right, right. A couple more questions, and then we'll go to the questions from the audience. One is, if you had to build a company all over again, my cat is trying to burst into this office. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Oh, this is a good question. I think I would have just like go slowly with new product development. I think like it's so easy to just like be carried away with making something new, right? It's like we are at the studio and it's like, oh, this is an amazing idea. Let's create this new style. But then now that I understand the whole process, is like, no, I need to only make what I'm sure is going to sell very well, and not just like make everything that I feel that it's a good idea, and just like think more about the numbers. Because then you end up with a product catalog that's too complex to explain.
Mhm.
um, so I think that's it, more of a make maybe 10 different styles, ignore the fashion rules, because the fashion rule says make full collections, and usually collections go up to 28 styles, and just like make 10, and if you like them, just continue to produce them and just modify small things. So I think that that's one of the big learnings, and that now I see very clearly.
Mhm. That makes sense. Okay. And then, we have a lot of people who are really interested in ethical fashion, in B Corps, in social entrepreneurship, doing for-profit businesses that have an underlying mission to them. So I'm curious, if you have, if somebody came to you and said, Laura, I'm thinking of starting a B Corp, I want to do a socially responsible business, what advice do you have for me? I want to feel good about the business that I'm starting. What would you tell them?
Well, I would say that it has to be something that you really believe in, and that you also need to understand that one of the biggest motivators, like isn't going to be something financial, and that you are really doing this because you want to help or you want to change something. um, and that's it. Like if you really believe in what you're doing, whenever you have like a challenge, you are going to stay true to it and be like, okay, I'm going to solve this, and to do it, because like it feels so good when you see the people that are being benefit with the company, and then you know that you are, what you're doing is giving you a purpose, and that you could always just like be in a more traditional job, but that this one it's going to be way more challenging, and that you also are going to need someone by your side to help you. But if you aren't true to it, or if you aren't really committed to it, whenever you face one of the challenges, you are going to feel very weak. And I think once you decide to do this, you need to continue.
Okay. All right. Excellent. On that note, I think we can look at some questions that have come in from the audience. Hold on just a second. I see stuff in chat. Okay. So, all right. So Ellen, are you back?
Yes, I'm in.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so we actually do have two questions from the chat from Raquel, and I hope that I'm pronouncing it right. So they also have I think they're starting out with a sustainable fashion brand, and they had a couple of questions. So first, actually, I'll combine them. So as the owner of a sustainable fashion brand, how did you go about spreading the word of your company and starting kind of in your journey to make your first sales? And I know you mentioned the pop-up shops and using those to get feedback. And then a second follow-up question was, could you speak more about the formula of distribution and how did you get to distribution, and how did you work through some of the issues in there?
Yeah, so what we did is that we participated in these pop-ups, so we just like got a little bit of traction because we were connecting to our consumers. And then there we also found boutique owners that won't say they're boutique owners until after. And if they really like their brand and they buy from you, they'll be very interested in carrying your brand too. So I think that in order to spread the word is that you need to go there and find your market. Like right now we had a few ideas. It's like maybe if we really want to grow in terms of attracting more tourists, then we need to go to the hotels and just like organize pop-ups there in the lobbies. And just like think about this, like if what type of clothing am I selling and where can I go so I can meet my market? And the other question was, there was another question, right?
Yes, so talking about the formula of distribution. So how do you get things to where they're supposed to go?
Yeah, so because we are just like, what we want is to grow organically, and we just like want to find places where we can sell the brand in long term. It's very like most of the times the customers find us, so we get emails and it's a customer order. Like last week we got one from Chile, and I was like, okay, Chile, that is going to be complicated, but I'm in. And it's also interesting because I was like, okay, who in Chile wants handcrafts from Mexico, because they also have so many beautiful options. So about the distribution for us is more about small boutiques or concept stores. And also our social media right now, it's working very well. And because we want to have more control over what we are selling, that's why we are opening the stores. And because I think that with the stores I have a better feedback of what products are working and what is going to be a success. And right now I'm still like trying to have a very product offering because we have too many products, so I need to narrow that down. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to connect Alyssa's question into that, where she wants to hear about your experience with circular economy in fashion and how to deal with the excess of inventory from previous seasons. And I know you're talking about streamlining your product line. So love to hear you talk about
Well,
that.
that's a very interesting question. One of the reasons we have too many styles is because we have a studio and we have full control over our production. And what we do is that we may have a lot of styles where we produce in very small batches. And that way we have a lot of control over the inventory. What we are doing is that we produce 20 pieces, and maybe in 2 months we realize that we are selling very fast on that style, and that's when we restock. And sometimes we just like we ran off of stock on that style or item for a month or even 45 days. But I do prefer that problem instead of having a lot of inventory sitting in my studio, because of like what do you do with that clothing that nobody wants. So for us it's more of that, like having control of the supply chain and producing in small batches, understanding what is if the market likes what we made of one style, then we relaunch again. And we don't follow any of the fashion rules. Like even last year we relaunched our classics from 2018, and we made small productions of 15 pieces of each style.
To connect another question to that, and I know you talked a little bit about, you know, you're producing small batches, so you're really not producing a lot of waste, and Wendy talked about the packaging as well. Do you have any insights to offer on sustainable fashion?
On sustainable fashion, insights
Mm-hmm.
about just on fashion?
Yeah, I guess as a category, the question is fairly broad, but I don't know if there's anything that you want to highlight in there as part of the work that you're doing. I know small batch does happen to fit in there as well.
You know what? Also, we do, like, we are really committed to not make any waste.
Mm-hmm.
So even like when we are cutting the fabric, we make sure there's like that all the pieces that are left are small. And what we are making with that with the scraps is that we are using them to make cushions that are super beautiful and luxurious, but the scraps were has fillers, so we fill the cushions with the scraps. And that works has a seat, or also has a pet bed. And it's so beautiful because it's zero waste. And even last year, we did have a few pieces from 2018 that we were having issues selling. So we just like cut them and made face masks. That's why they were zero waste. So like surplus inventory is not an issue, but you really need to be committed to what am I going to do with these extra things that I have, and not to make things that you don't need. And then the other thing that we do is that if we have fabric in the studio, when we are designing a new collection, we check what the materials we already have in stock, and then we create a few pieces with the materials that are in the studio. And so I think that's one of the things, like between us being a sustainable business or a business who wants to take care of the resources, is that you aren't always thinking about maximizing profit. Instead, you're thinking about how am I only going to make what I need? And the answer to that question is never perfect. You're always guessing. Yeah.
I also see some questions in the chat. So one question is, how important is it to be a B Corp to your future growth as in the kind of sustainable fashion and ethical fashion space?
Well, I think the best part about being a B Corp is that you have a certification to prove that what you're doing is just like up to the best standards. And why it's important to the future? Because it also gives you the metrics and a very clear point on what you need to be doing if you want to do things if you want to have the best practices.
Awesome. And we've got about 5 minutes left before we need to wrap up. So I want to take at least 2 more questions. So I see 2 questions in the QA. One of them is, would you create anything, mass or designs that are based on suggestions from customers? Any kind of custom designs or suggestions?
Yeah, we do it all the time. Like that's the benefit you get if you are one of our first customers who goes to the studio. We are like, I only do that to people that I know, or customers that I know that they are going to understand the brand and also be patient enough to wait for 2 months or 3 months, because our production process is very slow. And whenever we create one of those designs and like we get all excited about with the final result, then we just produce a few pieces to sell.
Nice. And then a question as well is, could you share a little bit more about your team? What kind of skills and knowledge did you look for? And how did you assemble your team? And what specifically did you look for in a partner?
Yeah. So right now our team is out of the 6 ladies, like we are three. There are 3 ladies in the studio making the clothing and production, and the other ones we are just like doing sales and back office. And the skills, well, what we look for is that you need to be a woman. And just like that, it fits into the profile or the person we are looking for, right? So we have I don't know how to say their positions in English, but I'll try. So we have this lady that manages the studio, and she has an assistant that is mostly cutting all the fabric. And then we have Araceli, and she's the seamstress. So she's making all of the samples, because what the studio we have in Mexico City is only a design studio. And we cut everything in Mexico City because that way we control the quality of the clothing. If you do a bad job with cutting the fabric, then it's impossible to solve that issue. And then we send everything to the factory in the state of Mexico, and they assemble everything there together. But then they do a quality check in the state of Mexico, and then we annul another quality check in the studio. And whatever we don't think it's up to the standard, it's sent back as many times as needed.
Awesome. And I know you talked a little bit about your business partner that you met in school. Would be interested to see kind of how you brought together the leadership team or the founding team, and what kind of qualities were needed there as well.
Well, Deborah and I worked together only during the incubation process, because she found a really good job, so she had to leave.
So it's mostly been you on your own since
Yeah,
then,
I am
and kind of your team.
Yeah, I am on my own since the beginning, but she invested in the company, and she's very she's always like supporting me, and whenever I have a question. So I think that's something good about having a partner. Like nobody is going to be as interested as your business partner in the business. So if you need to discuss a matter or some topic, or just like celebrate something, that's that's the best thing about having a business partner.
Nice. And I think we've got time for the last question that I see in the chat, which is, so do the short runs create do they help create a feeling of exclusivity? And also, is that something that you're trying to create, or is that kind of a side effect of it?
Yeah, it's yeah, so I think after all, because we sell a slow fashion, if you really like a jacket, you're going to be willing to wait for it. So yeah, it makes our products very exclusive. And that's one of the things that it's also nice. Like whenever you're buying a jacket from us, you know it's not going to be everywhere. So one thing, this is one thing that's very important for marketing strategy, and everything is organic. Um, because our pieces are so unique, then you have famous people wearing the jackets, and they create beautiful content. And then they help you sell so many pieces whenever they post something, and it's beautiful because it's natural. We don't give anything away, like we don't even have budget for that, but it's natural, and it feels real. So even when the previous person posts and we as a brand like say something, they reply right away. It's like, well, what you make is so beautiful and unique. And I think that's one of the good points of selling something that's exclusive and unique.
Awesome. So I think that's actually it for questions, and we're doing great on time. I see Wendy has come back. So Wendy, thank you again for moderating, and a very special thank you to Laura for joining us this evening. A big thank you for everybody to your very thoughtful questions as well. And I know some people shared their links in the chat, so please go and check everybody out. And thank you for participating in tonight's webinar. We'd also love to thank YLAN and Yale Women for co-sponsoring tonight's event, and the YAA Shared Interest Groups for making this event possible. A recording of the evening's webinar will be posted on the Accelerate Yale LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube channels, so please check us out there. Our next event in honor of Women's History Month will be on March 24th at 8 p.m. EST with Steph Spears of Solstice, a pioneer in the clean energy space. Thank you very much to everybody, and I hope you have a great rest of the evening.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, everybody. Gracias, Laura.
Gracias, buenas noches.
Adios. Bye.
Bye.